Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's see if technology is going to work today. Technology, oh, it works. Can you hear me? Yes. How are you? Good. I love being in South Carolina. It's a great place. I was here last with you in this group in 2021. Boy, those were interesting times. We were coming off of a pandemic housing boom and wondering what was going to happen. So we're going to fill you in on what happened in the housing market over the last 3 years or so. And I'm going to walk around because I've got two screens, but I will also come up here. We have a lot of ties to South Carolina. Am I too loud or am I okay? Thumbs up. Most importantly, my oldest son and daughter-in-law and my two only baby granddaughters live right here, so I'm glad to be here. Also, the person who's in charge of our entire data management, we have the best data in the industry. We're in 48 cities, as you'll see. She also lives here. And my IT manager that handles our platform, also the best platform in the industry, it lives in Charleston. So maybe I should move to South Carolina. It's probably going to happen. So as we've been speaking over the last couple of years, things have ebbed and flowed and we've changed. But, you know, we had the 2 years worth of high rates with the Fed's onslaught. And then it kept going and going. And so for a while, we titled our presentations, Welcome to Housing's New Normal, Higher for Longer, and Longer, and Longer, and Longer. Remember that? And then as we got close to September and started hearing things about maybe the Fed's going to consider cutting rates, maybe tackle inflation, maybe we said not much longer. And of course, we're past that now. We did see that 50 basis point drop. We'll see what's going to happen. So now we got to look to the future. So the title of today's is Life After the Fed Rate Cuts, and what else is happening? The election. We're going to talk about the effect that that's going to have on you personally and our industry. Both of these. Interesting stuff, and it's important. And I'm looking forward to telling you. When I was here last with you, we were in 35 cities. We're now in 48. Tremendous growth as we're being dragged by our customers to places I never dreamed I would cover data. Are you kidding me? We're in Sumter. Do y'all know that stuff's going on in Sumter? You see all the cities that we cover in South Carolina. I'm not going to be here all day, so I'm not going to delve deep into every one of our South Carolina cities. I'm going to sprinkle examples in all of our metrics. Reach out to me. I will give you whatever metric you see today. I've got it for every one of those cities. I can get it to you. So I'll sprinkle that out. But I continue. Look at Georgia. Why the hell am I in Valdosta, Georgia? You don't even know where that is, do you? It's on the way to the beach. Why am I there? It's nowhere. Because the biggest builder in the country is putting an 800-lot subdivision there, and they're going to do well. Why? Why are we continuing to push further and further out from the center of every market? One word, what is it? Price. What has facilitated that? I was always high on second and third tier markets. Greenville, Columbia, Savannah, Aiken. I was high on them before the pandemic because the quality of life is incredible. I mean, I go to Greenville and they complain about a 20-minute drive time. I go, shut up. Come to Atlanta. It's 2 hours every time I leave my door. Now, the new reality is what? Live, work, and play from where? Anywhere. And that is continuing to happen. So we're excited about it, and I think that's going to continue. This is just a record of our past successes in forecasting. I won't bore you. I'll just, let you know I was right. But listen, forecasting since the pandemic has not been for the faint of heart. Has anything been normal? No. So it's not been easy to do at all. I rely on my good friend Dr. Rajiv Dewan from Georgia State University Economic Forecasting Center. He's a world-renowned economist. I speak with him twice a year. This is the biggest event in Atlanta housing. We started doing it twice a year back in 2006. Not a good year to start doing anything in housing. Y'all are millennials, you weren't born then. It was bad. So we used to have 500, 600, 800 people at this event in person. And then, of course, in the pandemic, we went underground and had to do it virtually. So I've been begging for these people to get back together in person in Atlanta. And when you've got, it's grown from about 500 or 600 people online now, we have about 1,300 attendants, really from all over our footprints, not just from Atlanta or Georgia. So when you got that many people as a captive audience, you might as well do a poll, right? So the last poll question, I'll tell you, I ask every time is, are you ready to get back in person? Do you know what the answer is for my Atlanta people? 87% say no. So if I'm going to meet in person, I have to come to Myrtle Beach and Greenville and Richmond, because y'all still like to get together because you don't have a 2-hour drive time. That's the difference in Atlanta and here. It really is. So let me tell you, we've asked them the same questions, and this is 1,300 builders, developers, bankers. It's a big, big, varied market, but it's all housing related. So let me show you some of the polls results over the last 3 events. Uh-oh. There we go. And if you can't read this because it's little, I'll tell you what it says. So I've trended these. Some of the questions we ask multiple times so we can trend it, especially the first question there, since rates have been astronomically high, highest rate in 23 years. Are you still offering home shoppers rate-based incentives? So this is June of last year, December of last year, and we just did our most recent event in June of this year. And if you trend it, it really hasn't changed much. 67 said yes, 66, 65. So the majority of the builders that answered this, 1,300, said, yeah, we're offering rate-based incentives still, okay, which is, now then we asked them, has it been, what effect has it had on sales? A huge percentage, let me do my clicker. There we go. A huge percentage said, it really doesn't matter. But 51%, 53, and 48 said somewhat positive. Very few said very positive. What does this tell me? We're doing it as a defensive measure because we feel like we have to. It's having an effect that you may not know and you're going to see in the data. You're not just competing against other new home builders and communities around you. What are you competing with? What's your biggest competitor by number? Resale. Say it with me. Resale is 85% of all the transactions in this country. New homes, nationally, only 15. Your job is to steal that market share away, and you've been doing it. I'll show you. So I have the smartest audience ever, because this is last year, the end of last year. We said, what do you think we're going to end, rates are going to end at in 2024? The number one answer there, again, I'm going too far, I guess that way. Where's the actual computer running it? Is it here? Okay. So the number one answer there is, and I'm going to walk over there, is rates will fall into the 6s. They were absolutely right. So again, the smartest audience in the world. So rates are at 6.2 now. This is the one I want you to concentrate on though. Based on this year, January through May, because I wanted to take a pulse, because you're hearing all these negative headlines, which I'm about to show you. Horrible headlines. A pulse of the market of our 1,300 people. How are you compared to the same period last year? January through May of this year versus January through May of last year. So I gave them these options. Up more than 10, up less than 10, flat. Down less than 10, down more than 10. So you can see them split out there. But let me aggregate them. So if you take up 38%, if you take flat, it's 40. And down is 22. If you combine, hey, we're just as good or better than last year. If you combine those two, what do you get? 78. So about 80% of our folks are telling us we're just as good or better than last year. That's pretty much what the data is telling me in every market we're in. It's what the national numbers are saying. We're kind of flat year over year in terms of total demand. And then we ask them how their forecast is for the industry. They're all, we're a very optimistic group of people. We wouldn't do what we do, so we think we're all going to do better, and we hope we will. So what's up with all the negative headlines? I don't read the news anymore. I have my folks do it and tell me what I need to know, because it's just depressing. And it's incendiary. It's meant to elicit fear. And these headlines are unbelievable. I'm going to tell you, Redfin is the chief culprit in all this stuff. I mean, they are pouring out negative data, and it's actually shoddy reporting and shoddy data. I'll just go ahead and tell you that. This is an example. For the first time in 2022, home prices are falling. Read the first line in that article. What does it say? Home prices are what? Plummeting. When you think of plummeting, what do you think? Falling off a cliff. But then buried down in the article, it says data from Redfin shows that the median price dropped by $3,000 last week. Despite the dip, home prices are still up 4% over last year. Is that not the headline? That should have been the headline. Plummeting. You got to read behind the headlines, folks. Plummeting. So here's what they say is plummeting. There's Baton Rouge. They're down 1.1%. Plummeting. Texas. Austin has been all over the news. Collapse in Austin. Oh my God, prices are collapsing. They're down 0.3%. Is that plummeting? So what's going on in some of these cities where prices are moderating? Austin was the poster child in the pandemic housing boom of massive increases in price. The demand was off the charts, right? Coming out of California, everybody moving there, prices shot up, and then they started falling. Why did they start falling? Do you know why they started falling? Because cities across the country, like Austin, enacted zoning and regulation reform in a radical way, allowing people to build, baby, build. Did you know that? And that's why we're seeing moderation in prices in those markets. It's a recipe that we all need to take note of, and I think that's something that you'll see as we go through this. So what effect will the Fed's new rate policy have on housing? It's a little different than what you would expect. Some of the headlines are, floodgates are going to open after 4 years. Well, for the floodgates to open, you got to have something to buy, right? And so I think when you look at this economist right here, and I'll read you what she said, Diane Swank, there's a shortfall in housing in our country that's made it so that home prices rarely fall. You're about to see that too. They should have. The Fed went on a tear, raising rates the fastest in their history to the 23-year highs. Why did they do that? Because they wanted to destroy demand. It's an economic term. It's called demand destruction. Because shelter is a third of the CPI. Their reason was to combat shelter prices, and they thought raising rates would do that. It didn't work, folks. We're going to have to go back and rewrite textbooks. It worked in the 70s, but we're using a 20th century tool to try to fight a 21st century problem, and it's not going to work. And so I think this is what's going to happen is we're not going to fix this. And what she says is zoning and land use regulations are the crux of the problem. We've been underbuilding for decades since the last downturn. Decades. And it's going to take us a while to get out of this. So what do I think is going to happen as rates drop down? And again, there's inflation back in the picture, and we had a great jobs growth. Oh my God, we added 240,000 jobs. That's horrible. It's going to make them pause their rate cuts, but they're going to come down, folks. And when they do, here's what's going to happen. Finally, the Fed, Chairman Powell has said, what's wrong with the housing industry we can't fix. It's a supply problem. He finally said that. So what's going to happen is we're going to see rates go down. What's going to happen to demand? It's going to go up. Always does. Higher demand is going to be less inventory. Less inventory is going to do what? Make prices even higher. It sounds like 2020 all over again. It's the definition of insanity. The only way to fix this is to build more homes. And that even won't fix it. We can't do it. We don't have the capacity. So that makes our livelihood a long runway, because I got about 10 years I got to go before I ride off into the sunset. So I think we've got a long run here, because we're not going to satisfy the demand anytime soon. So let me bring you up to date. We started doing weekly updates. Last time I was here, October of 2021, we showed the turn in April of 2020 because the pandemic hit. We had those first few months in March and April where we shot up, all the cases shot up, and it did have an immediate downward effect on housing like you would think. What was weird is that we were watching data weekly, because that's the way to look at it if you want to see things change. Nobody else does that. And we saw that turn in April, and we were the first in the country to kind of define this pandemic housing boom. Because who knew? I mean, we all thought we were going to go out of business, did we? Can you think back far back? Yeah, I did. Anybody see that coming? Who knew that we were all going to go out and catch COVID and also go out and buy a house? But we did. And so we've been doing weekly updates, and now the driver is not COVID cases. What's the driver now? Interest rates. So we're still watching the data on a weekly basis. So anytime you look at national headlines, it's based on NAR data, it's based on the Census Bureau. It's always about 30 to 60 days behind just because that's how they tabulate the data. So anytime you read a headline, they're talking about stuff that was a month or two ago. I'm going to show you, do you want to see what December's headlines are today? Why is that not working? So I don't want to sugarcoat things. Nothing's been normal since 2020. And so since then, we've been comparing the market to our last normal year, which was what? 2019. 2019 was a really good year. It was a really good year for housing. Rates kind of came down. We had a new group of people back into the buying game. We'll talk about that in a second. But nothing's been normal since. So we've been benchmarking 2019, comparing ourselves to it since it's the last normal. So on this chart, by the way, lots of charts today. Don't glaze over. Stay with me. Remember this and you'll be fine. Up is good. Down is bad. Up is good, especially at my age. So what you're seeing here, unless your interest rates, is interest rates at the beginning of 2022 all the way to the left. We start at 3.25, and then you can see the interest rates all the way to current. And the most recent week I've got is through the end of September. Now I'm going to show you pending sales versus 2019. So we're down. We're not where we were in 2019 at all. So we're down about 20%, and that's as a nation. So we got 20% fewer people buying homes and contracts and transactions than we did in 2019. That's an effect of the rates. So we're not going to go back to those days. Now notice that 5.25 there. We did fine as rates went from 3 to 4 to 4.5 to 5. We really were hanging in there. In the second week of June of that year, rates crossed 5.25, and you can see that that's when they went negative. Can y'all see that? That 5.25 is what we call the sensitivity threshold. That's when the buyer said no more. And it hit like a ton of bricks. You remember that. And we really haven't recovered back to those pre-5.25 days, and we won't until we get back below 5.25. So I'm tired of talking about comparing to 2019. Is that okay? Let's just try to be better than last year. How about that? So let's look at that. You already know, I kind of gave you a hint to that, or how we're compared to last year. So now you're going to see the same rates on the left axis. And again, pending sales need to be above 0 to be positive, below 0 is negative. You want to be above 0. This is year to year. This is not compared to 2019. Looks a little different, doesn't it? So what you see is the absolute and utter collapse that we all experienced. These are the days of our discontent in 2022 when the Fed started going up. We hit 7.8 for 2 weeks, and it collapsed demand. I mean, we were running for the hills, dumping deals, jumping out of windows. Y'all remember that? And what happened is rates began to correct a little bit, and so when rates came down, strangely enough, we had a big uptick in pending sales. Does that make sense? Rates go down, demand goes up. That's the way it's supposed to happen. So we had a recovery coming into 2023. And then rates went berserk. We didn't spend 2 weeks above 8 in 2023. We spent 16 weeks over 7, peaking at 7.76. And yet pending sales continue to show improvement, even in that environment. And then we saw a big drop there, a corresponding. So what you had in 2022, when rates dropped, pending sales shot up. In 2023, when rates dropped, pending sales dropped up. Do you see that? So this year's peak is right there in April. We've seen rates drop since then, but what's wrong with pending sales? They're going the same way. They should be going up. Do you see that? What's different about 2024 than 2023 and 2022? Election. Got it. What effect is the election having? Let me just tell you, my best friend and speaker, Rajiv Dewan, has researched the effect of elections on the market, on everyone in the modern era. Here's what he's found. In every election leading up to it, the year before, and he tracks business investment, which is a job creator. But investment is investment. Is a housing an investment? It's most people's biggest investment, right? So business investment falls off a cliff leading up to every election in the modern era. He can show it on a chart. What happens is as soon as the election's over, and this does not matter who wins or who doesn't, business investment comes flowing back into the market. You may not like the outcome, but uncertainty is a killer for investing. And at least you know the rules and you get back in the game. Does that make sense? So what's happening is we do see people pulling back even though rates have come down. My thought is what's happened in the past is going to happen this time as soon as the election's over. And again, yes, we want to go one way more than the other, but we know the rules and people will get back in the game and start paying attention to those low rates again. I think it's going to be good for us either way. And by the way, you can see that, and that's why we do this weekly. Just in the last 3 weeks, we've seen a positive bump. So it's delayed, but there. So that's kind of where we're at right now. The long-term effect, we're flat year over year, but I'd rather be flat year over year than down 30% like we were in 2023 and down 45% like we were in 2022. Y'all with me on that? Good. I think it's only up from here. So if 80% are still buying, who are they? And who are the 20% that aren't? Why would anybody buy a home in this environment? Why? Anybody? Anybody? How about you have no choice? Also, a lot of buyers today are cashing in on massive equity that they built up because their home prices are out the roof, and they're paying cash. So the two categories of the 80% who are still buying a home today are made up of all cash buyers. There's a lot of those. And the other category is simply, I call it non-discretionary. You got to move. Divorce, death, birth. Hey, I got a job. You got to move. I don't want to pay 6.5. I got to. That's a big, you would think, reading the headlines, we hadn't sold a damn home in the last 2 years in this country. 80% are still buying homes because they have to. Why do we have such a high rate of non-discretionary buyers in this country? Have y'all looked at the job numbers? Let me show them to you. We're blowing it off the charts. Now, we've had some revisions lately, but we're massively positive on job creation. This is the little economy that could. We added 3.14 million jobs in 2023. We've already added, what is that? 2 million jobs so far. We blew out the projections last month in September, 254,000. And we're on track to do another 2.8 million. There's a lot of talk about job quality. I get that. But if you're getting a job and you're not living in your parents' basement, you need a place to live, right? Whether you rent it or buy it, I don't care. We don't have enough inventory either way in this country. So this is where the non-discretionary buyers are coming from. It's all this job growth. And by the way, this is real demand, people. This ain't fake demand like 2005, 6, and 7. Do you remember those days? You had a 520 credit score, just got out of San Quentin. We were putting you in a house.
Much of that demand is from corporate Wall Street, where they're buying
infinitesimal. Very good question. Infinitesimal. We've researched this. Is Wall Street buying Main Street? Let me give you the answer to that. Thank you for asking. And do not hesitate to ask questions. Because the headlines say Wall Street's buying Main Street. And Atlanta has been in the headlines about that. Here's what they'll tell you. They'll tell you 30% of the purchases in Atlanta are made by corporations. And what you think is big institutional guys, right? When you dig into the data, guess what you find out? Because we did this, nobody else does this. You have to look at who the buyer is. And what they do is if it has a corporation or an Inc. or something that denotes them as a company, that goes down as a corporate buyer. But then when you count the companies and how many homes they bought during the year, what we found is that only 2% of the companies that bought those 30% of the homes bought more than 5 homes. Only 2%. It's true. The vast majority of people buying homes are small mom and pop companies who do this, and they buy it, refurbish it, sell it back into the market. That is absolutely true. Got the data. I'll show it to you. Good question though, don't hesitate. I love being challenged. Why are also people still buying? They're not stupid. People aren't stupid. This is a fact check. My crack team had to verify this. It was slightly off, so this is actually the truth. In April of 1972, the interest rate for mortgage was 7.29 and rising. Where did it go from there, by the way? Wow! So if you waited for interest rates to go below 8, not 7 or 6, but below 8, you wouldn't have purchased a home until August of 1992, 20 years later. You would have rented for 20 years, waiting for rates to go down. Meanwhile, the value of real estate in this country tripled. People aren't stupid. And so that's why we're seeing people buy even with higher rates. So, and again, we're still 20% down. That 20% will not come back until rates, that 20% is people who can't qualify at today's rates or they're discretionary, want to move, don't have to move. As rates come down, that 20% is going to flood back into the market. Get ready. Get ready. So how's South Carolina doing? Pretty good. Better than most. Let's look at inventory. And again, I'm going to sprinkle in different cities here, but the same thing's going on everywhere. There's not enough inventory, even at today's diminished levels of demand, right? We can't meet the 80% of the people who are still buying. And you can see that in these numbers. So you've got Aiken as an example. You got inventory on the left. On the right is months of supply. So we started, and this is, I'm just getting you into the pandemic. This chart starts in October of 19. I want to show you that we were actually having a housing boom prior to the pandemic. 2019 is when the single biggest group who used to buy homes came back in the game after a decade of being absent and living in their parents' basement. The millennials kicked in a big way. That was prior to the pandemic. You can see how fast inventory was dropping. We had a little bit of pause when we shut the government down for 2 months. And as soon as we opened back up, we added to that millennial demand the new demand created by the necessity of, I need a schoolroom, I need an office, I need to get out of town. And that is where we burned all the inventory off. We've never seen months of supply numbers below 1 in the history of records being kept. And most cities went below 1. We burned off all our inventory, folks. That's what happened. And then as the Fed, which by the way made prices do what? Whoa, gee. And so the Fed's onslaught happened in 2022 and 2023. So we've seen inventory creep back up, but we're nowhere near. We started before the pandemic, Aiken was at 4 months of supply. We're now at 3. What's normal? 6. Has been since time began. You know the last time we saw 6 months of supply in this country? 12 years ago, 2012. We don't even know what it's like. So we're at 3. That's why we have such high inflation on prices right now. We don't have enough inventory. So how do we fix that? Well, you got to get back to 6 months of supply, right? That's normal. That's what we always want to be. That's equilibrium. So how do you do that? How do you go to Aiken and say, okay, let's make 3 months of supply. Let's make this a normal market and take that all the way to 6. How do you do that? Well, you have to add inventory. This is the math problem. Not my opinion. It's math. How much additional inventory would you need in Aiken based on the current absorption rate just to get back to 6 months of supply over the next 12 months? This is a math formula, not my opinion. You'd need 5,100 houses. Here's what that means. Right now, if you stopped building and listing homes right now in Aiken, they'd all sell off in 3 months. Does that make sense? That's what 3 months of supply means. If you wanted to burn off in 6 months, you'd need a lot more. If those 5,100 homes existed, and they don't, and good luck with that, at the current absorption rate, they would be absorbed in the next 12 months. That's what that means. You with me? Any bankers in here, by the way? They need to be in here. We need some more A&D loans, please. And we need them for the right product, which we're going to talk about. So we're still 17% below where we were in 2019, which was already too low. And again, Charleston, same story everywhere. You can see that they're below 3 months of supply right now. If Charleston were to get back to 6 months of supply, you'd need another 10,000 homes. Not going to happen. We can try. We can chip away at it. An example, Colombia, again, just to show you the kind of the same thing going on everywhere. Colombia's at 2.5 months. Whoa, 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 whoa. Technology, there's a poltergeist in here. So that's where we are. So let me break out new versus resale, because this is all good, but it's macro. Remember, new and resale are different animals. It's really the same thing. Housing is shelter. It's a need. You can fill that with either rent or own, new or resale, right? They're alternatives. And they play off of each other in terms of pricing. For example, beef and chicken. They're protein, same thing. I'd rather have beef, but if the price of beef goes too high, guess what I'll buy? Chicken, I gotta have protein. So that difference in price between new and resale is critical. And I wanna break out new and resale pending sales. We're the only company that does this. I can't believe it, but I Googled it, so you can try it too. This is difference. This is Greenville, so I'm throwing in Greenville here. You got new is the darker color, pending sales. Again, up is good, down is bad. This goes back to the pandemic. Resale is the lighter colored bar. So what's going on here is in the pandemic housing boom, everybody did well. Can you see that? That's our little 2-month decline. And then boom, everybody did well. And then 2 things happened right here. We ran out of new home inventory because we burned off the lots for the most part, because we hadn't developed enough in the past 15 years. And then people sitting in their homes, current homes, because the lock-in effect didn't list their homes. So what happened here is high rates, and we just ran out of inventory. And you don't add new inventory as easily as you list your resale. You push a button, hey honey, let's sell, and it sells tomorrow. It takes you what? 1.5 to 2 years? You got to go through the process of entitlement, blah, 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 blah. You get it funded. So it's not a coincidence that about 1.5 years went by. Rates still high, by the way. And then when we hit 2023, almost every market we're in saw an explosion. New construction was positive. Resale still negative. Can you see that? That's because we had the inventory for the limited demand that was there. Does that make sense? Resale is stuck. So we have gained great market share over resale. You're up 15% in terms of pending sales, new construction in Greenville year to year. But it looks like it's lower than this, but this is crazy. You're up 40% in 2023. You're still up 15% year to year. Resale's flat. So again, new homes taking market share away because of we got inventory and we're doing what? Rate-based incentives. Can a homeowner do that? No.
Are homeowners handcuffed by their mortgage rates as well? They got 3% and they don't want to sell.
That's exactly why they're not moving. Yeah. And that's a very good question. When will that happen? What's it going to take to unload that, to unlock that inventory? And we'll talk about that. So again, just that same example in Charleston, same story. Charleston, new homes are up, resale's down. This is Columbia, new homes up. Where's my clicker? 22%, and resale's down. So this is what we're seeing. This is why it's important to split out new versus resale. Yes?
Let me ask you something. You maybe cover this later in your presentation. I foresee a lot of people from Florida moving north real soon, and more short stopping. I mean, that's what made Aiken, it made a lot of the counties in South Carolina, North Carolina, Myrtle Beach to some degree.
They're coming down and up. They've been streaming from the Northeast for a while. Now they're coming up. You got it. You got it.
Stopped, but because they thought Florida was getting full, and with these 2 storms that just went through.
Yeah, yeah. And Florida has a lot of issues. That is one of them. The insurance, Now again, new homes are actually doing okay in Florida. Why? Because they're built to today's standards. The resale's collapsing because nobody wants them. So that's again why you look at new and resale differently. Nobody does it. Good question, by the way. What about price? Anybody own a home in this room or homes? You're going to love me after this slide. You're going to shake my hand. If you want to own a home, you're going to hate this slide. Okay? So let's talk about it. And I'm going to use Charleston, but again, the same thing's going on everywhere. This is year-to-year price change. Okay? And we're going to go back to prior to the first part of the pandemic, January 2020. And again, up is good, down is bad. You look at housing year over year. If I see another stupid article that says, Oh, prices in October are down from September. Guess what, idiot? That happens every year. Housing seasonal, right? When's the peak selling season? Why? Schools. You're going to see that too in a minute. Don't look at housing month to month, folks. Look at year over year. This is year to year. So barely a negative during the pandemic. We did see some negatives in Charleston for 3 months. But let's tell a story here. What's the average? Appreciation in our country for the last 50 years has averaged 4.6%. That's normal. Not 21, not 0, 4.6. It stays just ahead of inflation for the most part, which is why it's a good investment. So 4.6 is normal. We were kind of there prior to the pandemic. And boy, with lack of supply and heated demand, your values in Charleston shot up 21%. That was true for the country as well. In 2021, you were still up 14%, way above the national average or the long-term average. And even with the Fed's onslaught of rates in the sevens, you still managed to eke out 7% gain, still higher than the what's going on here. And by the way, it's heading back up. Can you see the end of that chart? We're heading back up because rates are starting to come down. People are getting back in the game, and there's no inventory. And that's just simple economics, folks. So we're up 14% year over year. But let me tell you what this means in terms of your equity. You ready? This is where you're going to love me. So yeah, we're up 14% over last year. Let's aggregate this. Prices in August of this year are up 40% over 2021. You're up 49% over 2020. And you're up 81% over 2019. Y'all are sitting on a boatload of equity. Would y'all sell your homes, please? We need the inventory. Where are you going to go? By the way, this is a good time to talk about that. Silver tsunami. Everybody heard that term? Silver tsunami. Silver. I got a lot of that. What is that? All the boomers are going to unload their homes at one time. Flood the market with inventory. It's going to be an apocalypse. Let me tell you, if that was going to happen, why didn't it happen in 2021? When your value shot up 20%, hey, it's time to get out. And what were rates? 3. Why didn't we see that tsunami then? You got nowhere to go because you don't build what you want. Talk about that too. Same thing going on in Myrtle Beach, although Myrtle Beach has seen prices go way up. Bam, bam, bam. So Myrtle Beach history there is prices are up 32% over 2021. 49 and 75 over 2019. So lots of equity growth here. These people are sitting on all that growth, not why am I not moving? Well, rates are part of it. But even if rates come down, they got to have something they want. So this is hilarious. So Jerome Powell, so prices have never gone down. So Jerome Powell said, I'm beginning to think that rate hikes may be having a smaller effect than in the past. Duh. Gee. Here's another one. Now, The Economist is the kind of reading that puts me to sleep. I can't do it. But this is a very good article, and this is globally. Why are people still buying in this environment at all? In every country for which we can find data, the increase in incomes in recent years has dwarfed the increase in interest costs. No one likes higher mortgage payments, but the vast majority of people can afford them. That's where we're at. So, also in the news, sales of high-end homes. Again, so we split out pending sales. Pending sales are important. Why? It's our leading indicator, right? Tells us where we're going because you sign a contract and then 30, 69 days you close, so it tells us where we're going. Why do we split out new and resale? I showed you what we did on the demand side. Now we're going to look at it by price. Nobody else splits out pending sales by price. Why? I don't know. This is a tale of two markets, folks. It really is. Some of this is going to shock you. And let's look at it by price point. Again, we're the only ones that do it. So let's look at Aiken. If you look at pending sales this year, under 300, they're down 14%. If you look at pending sales this year from 3 to 7, they're up. How about over 7? They're up 63%. These people aren't affected by interest rates, and they got boatloads of equity, right? That's why the high end's doing well right now. But here's the problem. That buyer pool, the people who can afford a home over 7, how big is that market? It's tiny. You know how big it is? By the way, months of supply is critical. We have low supply, 3.5, below 3, 4.1, a little bit better, and then 8.6. Where we've got supply, we're making sales. But again, that over 7 is just 7% of the market. We need the inventory below that. We're going to talk about how do you get there. So again, Columbia, same thing. Again, I'll just sprinkle in some examples. And if you look at that, you're up 36%. Months of supply, again, has an effect on that. We have more supply in the higher price points. But again, it's a very small market. And then let's go to Greenville. Do the same thing. Again, I could show you every single market I'm in. 48, it's the same thing everywhere for the most part. So up 20%, sales over 7. So there we go. Bam, bam, bam. Now, 10%. So it's a little bigger market in Charleston above 7, or in Greenville above 7, but it's still 10%. It's a small portion. So I'm going to give you this example from Charleston, but we do this in every city as well. We like to rank the hottest areas of every market. And how do we do that? When you say location, 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 what does realtor mean by that? What does that mean? What it means is school district, school district, school district, right? Because that's the biggest driver for most people. It just is. It's why we're seasonal. So what we do is we rank new home sales in each market by high school. So we can see who's selling the most new homes, and then we show the price. What I want you to see is how this has changed. And this is Charleston, but it's the same thing everywhere. I'm going to go back to 2021 and show you what it looked like then. By the way, our esteemed chief economist, Robert Dietz, who I've spoken with many times, great guy, said this, and I agree. That 300 price point is today's new definition of the starter home. And I agree with this. The markets that are going to grow are where builders can offer that product. It's getting more and more impossible to do that. Let's see what's going on. And this is Charleston. Same thing happened everywhere. So if you go back to 2021, you can see the Heights School District, the number of units, new homes sold, and the average price of those new homes. And these are the top 15 in the Charleston market. And I want you to see there are 7 of those 15 were a place in 2021 where you could buy a home with a $350 or less price point. You see that? So let's fast forward to 2023. 3. By the way, what's going on in Wando, by the way? Anybody from Charleston in the room? Who? Wando.
You know, you forget about Boeing and Volvo. They're all there.
Yeah.
And that Cane Bay is all the result of Boeing.
Look at the price in Wando, though. It's the average is $1 million. Somebody's got money buying homes. 7 to 3, and now this year we've only got 2. We're losing the ability to satisfy the demand for that starter home. It is an extinction that's happening in this country. We got to fix it, folks. We got to fix it. So the question is, how do you build in those price points? There are really only 2 ways. Thanks for hanging with me. I'm getting close to the end. What are the 2 ways? I already talked about one of them. You move further out. We're doing it. Everybody's doing it. It's called drive until you qualify, right? You know that term? But that's not the only way. What's the other way? So there's drive till you qualify. What's the other way? Build smaller homes. That's it. Those are the only 2 ways. Good luck with building smaller homes. You got to get through the gatekeeper. Who are the gatekeepers? Local municipalities. I'm in front of municipalities all the time with my customers trying to get a little bit more high density, and it is a fight. You know this. You live it every day. I have left fearing for my life from some of these meetings where the homeowners show up with pitchforks and torches and pre-printed t-shirts and they're screaming. They're a very vocal minority, and they blow you up on Facebook and they get things done. Unfortunately, they're a minority. But you gotta, listen, this is tough. Our zoning today is based on the way the world looked like 30 years ago, and we gotta change it because the world, I don't look like I did 30 years ago, let me tell you. So what did the world look like? The zoning hasn't changed in the last 30 or 40 years. It really hasn't. It's very polarized. It's either apartments, single family detached. That's it. That's all we've been doing for the last 40 years. Why? Now, because the way the world used to look is like this. This is an inverted barbell. So 20 years ago, I was in my mid-30s. I had hair. I was at the late end of the Gen X, and then the people that were solidly in the boomers were in their mid-40s. What did we have back then? Kids in elementary, middle, and high. We were the biggest group in the country. It made sense that our zoning reflected that. And so for the last 40 years, we built millions of single-family homes in this country. Millions. And they're all out there being sat on by people who won't sell them. Does the world look like this today? I don't look like I did. What does the world look like today? What's changed? That's an inverted barbell. Today it's a regular barbell. The two biggest consumer groups are on the bottom and the top. The millennials are now the biggest consumer group, throwing their weight around. And then me, I just kicked my last kid out of the house. I don't need a single family home. I've been in one for 30 years. Give me something else. So the two biggest consumer groups are looking for product that we're really not set up as far as zoning to provide in a lot of ways. And by the way, these two demographic groups have a lot in common if you think about it. Don't you think so? This one down on the bottom loves to party. This one on the top just got rid of his last kid. Every night for them is a party. Right? And I speak to municipalities. I say, you need these people in your community. Why? Because they party. You want these people, but you've got to be intentional about what you allow to be built. Right? Because they don't want what you've been building for the last 40 years. Right? This one's sitting in it already, can't get rid of it because he has nowhere to go. This one's just getting out of his parents' basement or an 800 square foot apartment. I don't need 3,000 square feet. I'm never going to have kids. I just want to party. So here's what I say. You want these two groups to buy, but you've got to be intentional about what you allow to be built. Why? These people have all the money, right? Why do they have all the money? They got no kids. You got kids, you're broke. I had 4. What was I thinking? They love the amenities. The location is the amenity. All what I hear is traffic, 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 traffic. Or we're going to put an 800 lot subdivision here. Traffic, traffic, traffic. No. If you build right, these people are retired. These people work from home. There's no traffic. They just want to Uber to your little downtown, get drunk, and Uber home. And spend their money. They're not going to tax your services. They're not going to flood your schools. You get it? I do. But you got to build what they want. We're not doing it. By the way, I've been using this joke since 2018, and I get away with it. People keep laughing, so I keep doing it. I may have done it when I was here last time with you, but I updated it. And what I'm saying is we're a different world today. 55 ain't what it used to be. We're living longer. We're more active than we've ever been. We love to party longer than we ever loved to party. And I use Tom Cruise as an example, but this is 2018. He looked pretty dang good at 55. And I used that joke and got away with it for 5 years. And then he did what? He turned what? He turned 60, and did he slow down? No. He went and blew the world up with Top Gun, Maverick, and he's doing stuff like this. You kidding me? I wouldn't do that at any age. That's crazy. So he's 62 now. Has he slowed down? Did y'all see this? Really cool sequence if you saw it. He jumped off the roof of the Stade de France. Crazy. Not only can he do his own stunts, he can run up and down stairs in a townhome, folks. Got it? But listen, Tom Cruise, I got to move on from him. He's old news. You know, I've milked it for all it's worth. 55, 60, 62. So he's old news. There's a new game in town. 72 is the new 55. Did you know that? Because there's our golden bachelor at 72. Now I'm sure he's been nipped and tucked, but he looks pretty darn good for 72. So here's the difference in today and back in the 80s. What did 50 used to look like in our country? There's 72 today. There's Wilford Brimley at 50, filming Cocoon. It's a different world, folks. So what's more dangerous, by the way, jumping off the roof of the Stade de France in a helicopter or dating 20 women at the same time? I think you know the answer to that. Oh, by the way, live happily after, not. They got a divorce. So the two biggest consumer groups are kind of stuck with nowhere to go. When you build that thing that they want, anytime we see that product being built, and mostly it's on the active adult side, those places go berserk. You know that. We don't have enough of it. We also have enough for the younger group either, and it's all that product that's in the middle that we're missing. So they're looking for stuff that's not a single family, not an apartment. It's in that middle. It's that middle range of 1715, 1250, 950 square feet. It's missing in this country. We haven't built in 100 years. Why? Look into it. Zoning was created and by nefarious means 100 years ago, and that's why we don't build it, but the market wants it. Most cities are predisposed against it, and they don't even know why. Minimum square footage, 2,000 square feet. Why? I don't know. Minimum lot size. Why? I don't know. It's exclusionary, people. It's socioeconomic bigotry sponsored by the government. Do you know that? So we're witnessing an all-out war being waged on housing affordability. Yeah, it's coming from rising material costs, rates, inflation, labor, blah, 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 blah. You could get rid of all that stuff. Lumber could be free, have all the labor you want. You still can't build a home in the right price range. Why? Exclusionary zoning keeps pushing the prices up artificially. This is, hear me, this is the defining issue of our time domestically. We got a lot of stuff going on globally, I get it. This is the issue, folks. Why do I say that? That's a bold statement. Well, let me ask you about other industries. Do we have a critical shortage of office space today in this country? No, they're being foreclosed on and turned into condos. Do we have a critical shortage of retail? No, the millennials took care of that by buying everything on Amazon. How about warehouse space? No, we've overbuilt that too, by the way. We can all agree that we don't have enough housing. We've got to come together to fix it.
Many warehouses, critical shortage.
Many warehouses. We need radical reform in zoning. Now, when I started talking about this in 2018, missing middle, I had never heard that term until I was in Greenville. Sitting doing a presentation in Greenville in 2018 and heard missing middle for the first time. Thought I knew everything there was to know about this business. It's been here 30 years. Boy, nobody heard about it in 2018. It's all over the place now. Not just because we're talking about it, because everybody's talking about it. We need radical zoning reform, and we're starting to see progress. When you think of radical, you think of stuff that starts in Oregon or California or New York and then it works its way to the rest of the country. Guess where this radical change in reform is starting in our country? The flyover states, those crazy Midwesterners. They're pulling this off. I'll give you some examples and then we'll be done. So missing middle is density that doesn't look like density. Nebraska was the first missing middle neighborhood from the ground up in over 100 years. Missing middle looks like a house, looks like a standard house or a big mansion, but it's broken up into multiple units. You can see that. It works because it fits in with the neighborhood. It looks good. It accomplishes density, but it doesn't look bad. That's why more and more municipalities are beginning to approve this. Their radical reform is taking what was only allowed to be one home on one lot and allowing you to do, not forcing you to do, but where it makes sense, allowing you to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can get it up to 40 units an acre using missing middle concepts. It still looks good. Okay, it's not apartment, but 40 units an acre is pretty good. So Austin has slashed home prices. When you hear zoning reform in all these articles, and I'll send these to you, it's all talking about going missing middle. Multiple homes on a single lot instead of a single home on a lot. That's what this is all happening. So Austin has done that. Their inventory has ratcheted it up. The effect, as you can see, has been a moderation of prices. It's what we need to do. We have very real examples we can use. Austin should be a model for the rest of the country. I agree with that. And then if you look at Colorado's doing it right now. So, and Minneapolis is probably the poster child for this. They started doing this back in 2017. Radical reform, allowing multiple homes on single lots. The effect has been an increase in inventory. And the long-term effect is rent growth in Minneapolis since 2017 is only up 1% compared to 31% in the U.S. overall. So this is a YIMBY moment. So what's an YIMBY? This is a movement right now. It's a YIMBY, yes, in my backyard. It is. Now, it's hard to push it on some of the homeowners, as you know, and live every day. But it's happening, and I think it's a good thing. So YIMBY is coming. The winning streak means that I think we're going to start to see this. We're chipping away at it. More and more people doing it. So let me ask you, you've heard of YIMBY and NIMBY. What's a YIGBY? We've done 4 feasibility studies in the last few months for churches who have excess land, who want to get in and help provide affordable housing, and they can zone whatever the hell they want. And they're doing affordable housing. It's called Yes in God's Backyard. Very cool. It's going to take any and every solution we can come up with to fix this. Public, private, all hands on deck. Atlanta success story. You know, we're proud when we can help people. We try to do it all the time. This is a study I did, presented it before the Board of Commissioners about a year ago. And then by the narrowest of margins, I'll let my customer tell you this story better than I can. By the narrowest of margins, 4-3 vote, the BOC, they secured a rezoning. It was 249 homes at a square foot range of 11 to 1350. And it's in Barrow County, which is not close to downtown. It's way on the outskirts. See? So that was pretty radical. So he's going to be in the mid threes, 320 to 349. So what you get pushback from is, oh, you're going to bring our home prices down because you're building homes in the threes. Is that true? What's the price per square foot on those homes? Pushing 300. You're going to enhance values around you. People don't get that. And this is hilarious. One more thing. The BOC asked us, don't call them affordable. They want us to call them attainable. I don't care what you call it, just get it done. So that's an interesting story. Go get them. Forecast, and we'll be out of here. If you look at the permit history in Aiken, Charleston, Columbia, and Greenville, it looks like the rest of the country. So again, up is good, down is bad. This is the 12-month moving average for new permits, single family, not apartments. So what's the story here? The pandemic boom, we all collapsed because of high rates, and mainly we ran out of inventory. And then new homes have surged as we've brought more lots online, and resale is stuck. Does that chart make sense to y'all? So that's new home surging. I showed it to you in all the charts. If rates come down, this is only going to continue to happen. That's kind of my forecast. And I think it would take a long time to unlock the amount of resale inventory that would flood the market. It's just not going to happen. First of all, no demographic movement is a tsunami, right? It's a slow thing. I mean, the boomers are 56 to 75, and they're all going to sell their home at once. So, and we got a pre-8 product that lets them do that. So what's your forecast, and I'll be done. This is really what I want you to, this is what you're going to leave with. What's your forecast? Here's what I say. I'm going to give you 5 experts, 5 of them, and you pick which one you want to believe, okay? 5 experts. This article came out a year ago. 4 of these 5 people looked stupid. They really look dumb now, and they're experts. How do they have a job? So this is Vincent Dillard. No, this is Jerry Grantham. He's a warm and fuzzy kind of guy. He's been predicting a downturn for the last 4 years. And he's doubled down on it now. He's saying stuff like, I think we're going to see home prices go down 30%. He said this last year. Did that happen? How does he have a job? All right, who's my second expert? Of course, it's a woman who gets it right. Barbara Corcoran. What did she say? What did she say? I can't get my clicker to work. What says? Home prices are going to surge once the Fed cuts rates. Home prices were surging before the Fed cut rates because there's no inventory. So she's right. And she said, no inventory is like an insurance policy. That's what's different this time around than 2008. We had too much of everything in 2008. Too many builders, too many bankers, too many developers, too many lots, too many everything. It's the opposite now. That's an insurance policy. Nothing's going to make more homes available while interest rates remain high. I'm banking on her, but let's look at the other guys. And why is it these old, crusty, gray-haired bald guys that are such a bad, sour mood? This guy, Dave Rosenberg, I think we're going to see prices drop 25%. Nobody goes back and checks this. Redfin CEO, I've already talked about them. No respect at all for those folks. Blah, blah, blah. And this guy I want to end with, Vincent Dillard. This is how delusional these people are. Remember, I told you that 80% are buying today and 20 aren't. Who's the 80 that are buying? Non-discretional, right? So this is how delusional these people are. He says this. Let me go back. The frozen housing market will ultimately thaw as homeowners can't hold off selling forever. Oh, yes, we can. And we are. It's called aging in place. You give me somewhere to go and maybe I'll think about it. His premise is wrong. He says this: eventually, people switch jobs, move cities, get divorced, and die. Dude, that's who's buying now. People who switch jobs, move cities, get divorced, and die. That's the only people buying right now. So again, what's your forecast? We are not going to see prices go down. We're not going to help. We're not going to fix our inventory problem anytime. I think we got a decade to get out of it, if ever. That means we got a long runway. So any questions? That's my presentation. I hope I didn't go too long. Thank you for your time. By the way, shameless plug, if you're going to be at IBS, I'll be speaking with two of my customers from Savannah, Mark Hunter, Lamar Smith. Some of y'all may know those folks, on BTR and small and medium-sized companies getting in that game. So, yes.
I have some people that I call the conspiracists that say that builders are keeping prices inflated because it's better for them. What would you say to that?
No. All builders would like to build something less they can't. They have a floor based on exclusionary zoning and every other cost that's involved. Good question.
I've got 2,600 townhouses north of the Broad River in small town Beaufort coming online, owned by corporations. That's going to kill my market and eat up any available lots and inventory.
That surprises me because those guys have really gotten out of that business. That must be left over because when the rates went up, those institutional guys got out. They're all my customers, by the way. They got out of it because the cap rates don't make sense. I mean, I'm talking about American Homes for Rent. I'm talking about Resi Built. They're all customers of mine. Guess what they're doing right now? They're going into another business. They're going to develop lots and they're building retail for sale because they can't make money doing build to rent anymore. So that's probably left over from all the stuff that came, but that's really backed off with rates being high. But I got it. Good question. Anybody else? Yes.
Are you worried at all about the drop in the birth rate, or is it just too far out to worry about right now?
No.
It happened in 07 and 08.
No. I took the slide out. The population has never gone down. Yeah. And the slide is housing starts shown with population, going back to 2000. So you see the chart, housing starts, total housing starts, new and resale, apartments and particularly. As population went up, 2001, 2, 3, 4, and 5, the population went up, so did housing starts, right? And so what happened in the Great Recession is, and I'll give you this chart, what happened is the population kept going up in 2006, 7, 8, and we collapsed, and we've never recovered. And so that gap that you hear people talking about, 4 to 6 million in terms of a deficit of supply in this country, is that gap between the current population, which has never gone down. The rate of growth may slow with birth rates. It's not going to go down, but we still have it. That's such a big gap to make up, but it's just not possible. Good question, though. Any more? Y'all are awesome. Thank you for inviting me. Yes?
What about the spread between national builders and local and regional builders?
So that's a good question. It's different for every market. In the second, third tier markets, it's been largely controlled by the local builders and regional builders. We are seeing nationals get into that game as they're trying to get their price point down and expand their stuff. So it's tough to do that. They're going into some of those markets and paying a stupid tax, if you know what I mean. But some of those guys are going to do it anyway. So yeah, that's happening. But it's different in every city. Good question. By and large, though, as you know, as a member of the NHB, 75% of our membership is still small to medium builders. It's still small companies. So this 25% is the big, and it's increasing, but it's still in terms of the total homes built. Plenty of room, plenty of demand for all of us, probably. Great. Another question?
We're 1.5 million homes behind. Is that right? Is that agree?
6 months.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a huge.
Yeah. Get busy. Get busy. Tell your bankers to give you A&D and C money, especially A&D. You can't get the C unless you got the A and the D, right? I got to have the acquisition development. Thank y'all very much.